why are we doing this? I alluded to that a little bit. And whoops, back. So the purpose of this initiative is to confront. We know that we cannot sit by idly without using our place, our platform that we've been so lucky to be given, to influence what the conversation is and to influence the expectation that we have for our community for addressing the needs for our students. So we know we need to confront issues of race and equity as, of course, they impact education. We need to ensure that there's access and opportunity for students of color and work diligently at that each day. And we must fulfill our obligation at the foundation and to being a nonprofit to respond to what's happening now. So the outcome for today, how will we know that we are being successful, is if we have the ability to shift adult mindset and encourage all of you and encourage ourselves to have those courageous conversations. So how are we going to do that today? Today, we're going to first watch a video, and which is a fishbowl, actually. It's a group of people talking about race. And then we're going to have our own live fishbowl, where we'll have some folks responding to the video, really in light of what we hold as our meeting norms and which I'll be sharing in a moment. So what are these people saying in the video about race, about equity, about inclusion? And then what do our folks here locally in our community, how would they react to that? Then we'll go into a breakout group and then hear what you have to say. We know in order to encourage folks to have a bold and courageous conversation, we need to be in sometimes smaller group settings where we can ask questions, listen some more and listen again. So then we'll come out of those breakout groups. We'll have a little bit about growing on the continuum of our own consciousness about being able to speak about race and inclusion and diversity. We have a challenge to action activity that we will be giving to you. What can you take away from this to move your own practice forward? And then we'll have a closing. The 4 agreements that we have during these meetings is for you to stay engaged. And it might get uncomfortable, and that's okay. Expect to experience discomfort. These are hard conversations, and they're not comfortable all the time. So to stay engaged, be present, listening, you're going to experience discomfort, but hang in there. Try to move through that, listen through that, and then speak your truth and do it with respect. We can tell our story without trampling on somebody else's story. And then the time will be done. And as with so many of these conversations, there's not an arrival. We're not going to arrive at, okay, now we're done. Now we are conscious. Now we have equity. So you have to expect and accept that there is going to be non-closure. So with those in mind, those 4 agreements in mind, let's watch a clip. It's about, I think, 10 minutes long. And this is a group of people talking about race and inclusion and diversity. And watch how they stay engaged. Watch how people speak their truth with respect. Watch how some people are experiencing discomfort, but they're staying engaged. And watch how they accept and expect non-closure. They don't expect someone to put a period on it or to put a point on it. It's just I shouldn't say it's just a conversation, because it's a conversation, and how people sit with that. All right. V's going to cue it up for us.
Racial tension in Ferguson, Missouri still simmers this morning. As you know, Michael Brown was shot and killed by a police officer in August. The city is waiting for the results of several investigations. Attorney General Eric Holder yesterday called for wholesale change in the Ferguson Police Department. Republican strategist and CBS News contributor Frank Luntz brought together 17 people to talk about race relations in America.
It's one of the most emotional issues, and it's very difficult to have a conversation without that passion coming through. But we're fortunate to have a diverse group of people here, and I need to ask you, are race relations in America getting better or getting worse?
Worse. And I blame Obama for doing it.
So you go right to politics.
Right to politics.
Right to politics.
Because we have a president who's made everything political.
Our race relations in this country have to do with us and our separatism as people and not working together to build those gaps.
I think the media and politicians on purpose inflame the issue of race relations.
You guys agree with that?
I agree.
We live common, decent lives. And once in a while, a Ferguson accident happens and media blow it out of proportion, portray it as an assault of one race on another, and inflame people, make them angry, make them agitated.
Say that again.
Ferguson happens in every city, every day, across the board. Black, white, Hispanic, Indian, whatever.
I went to school in Ferguson, Florida at the time, in the 70s. Guess what happened? There weren't that many blacks there, but over time, more and more blacks came, and it was like a resistance. And at the time, they were known for just harassing and kind of beating blacks. But now what happened, that a step further, an unarmed kid getting killed, I don't think it's acceptable.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Use the word black rather than African American. I'll be candid with you also.
Sure.
We're trying to be careful.
That's right.
To use the right terminology. But you said black. Why did you say?
When you guys make the term.
You say you guys make the term.
Not you, but I'm just saying the powers that be.
I do too.
We're not a box of crayons.
African American people are people who come to America from Africa. Charlize Theron is African American. Francois Botha, the boxer, he's African American. I've never been to Africa in my life. I am a Black American woman. Why do we keep coming up with all these? We've been from color to Negro to African American. Why can't we just be comfortable being black? That's who we are.
By show of hands, who believes America's more integrated today than it was 20 years ago? Who thinks it's more segregated today? So more people say segregated. What gives you that impression?
I think it's just somewhat discrete in various areas, but I still think it is a huge problem.
I think the thing is it's very hard to have a race conversation when it's not peaceful demonstration like Martin Luther King standing up for rights, and this is and having a message. It was a messaging. Now we see looting and shooting and breaking stuff and acting poorly.
Well, what would you do if 24/7 the man is on your neck?
The man is not on anybody's neck. The bottom line is that. Listen, I've kicked down a lot of white people's doors too, and I'm former law enforcement. What I'm saying about the Ferguson thing is that the bottom line is that, you know, you teach your children not to assault the police.
Exactly.
Number one, you have no business putting your hands on a cop to begin with, and hitting them and attacking them. If you do that, you're going to get what you get. Okay, so there's no angel.
This dude on trial because he's not alive, and we don't know
Well,
all
that's
the
easy
facts
to
of
say,
the
though,
situation.
but
We don't
he's
even
been
know if
caught
that
up,
video was really a video of him or not.
Well,
The point is,
Wait, stop! You really don't think, you think that was Photoshop?
my point is, we don't have the facts on the situation, so we're not going to talk about, we're not going to put him on trial
All
today.
the facts, exactly.
But that goes back to my
But there are
point.
people higher up
Abusing
than-
authority
He
is
was finna
not
go to
abusing
college.
authority.
Ain't no boy
The
gonna
police
miss
officer
that.
was tried in
He
a
might have did all this dumb stuff, too.
Why is it we have had a conversation here that has been brilliant
Common sense.
up until this moment?
Because it's a very sensitive issue.
Because I can leave here right now and walk down this street and the police can see me and kill me.
It's not even close to being true. It's not even close to being true. Look, I work with the police every day, okay? And the mandates basically is to deter crime.
Frank, when we're talking about race, all this talk about race, I'd say minimum 95+% of people could care less about race, whether you're Black, Hispanic, Chinese, whatever. So it's just a tiny percentage of overall America, and we're making a huge issue out of it. The majority of people could care less.
So we should not be.
Keep happening, then there's a
But
problem.
they don't keep happening. When they look at the statistics, it's very small. The percentage of the amount of people who are shot is small.
I don't care what statistic it is. If it happens one time, it's too many times.
What needs to be taught so that America is a stronger country?
We need to teach how to be tolerant of one another and celebrate our differences and understand each other's differences.
So now we're going to begin our Fishbowl activity. And I'd just like to say welcome to those this evening for joining us on this call. And our Fishbowl participants are Nguyen. She's from San Ramon Valley Unified School District, principal there. Ma Bernadette Andres-Salgarino is affiliated with Santa Clara County Office of Education. Jamal Splane, Oak Grove School District, principal. Rosemary Kamei, Silicon Valley Ed Foundation, and Edgar Quiroz-Medrano, Franklin McKinley School District. And my name is Denise Williams, and I'm Chief Program Officer for the Silicon Valley Ed Foundation. So welcome, Fishbowl folk, and thank you for participating in this aspect of our presentation. So all of us got to hear this video clip, and my first question to you is, describe the actions, because you know we did talk about how we really want to be having a lens of the 4 agreements. So describe the actions of the members that demonstrated their engagement in this conversation. And anyone could just go ahead and share out what you observed.
Hi, Denise, this is Stacy. I'm going to say they were, some people responded in a very defensive way.
Okay. Oh, let me make one clarification. Audience, let's listen to these 5 that are on the screen now. Raise your hand, you guys, so we'll know who you are. And then, and Stacy, thank you so much, but save your wonderful comments till after they're done, okay? Then we're gonna go to the breakout rooms, and then you guys will respond. Because I really probably should have said first that in a fishbowl, folks do get to comment, but this is a modified fishbowl. You're gonna get to comment a little later. You don't comment like right after. So thank you, Stacy, but hold on to that thought, and we're gonna move on with these 5 educators right here, and then we will get the rest of the folks involved. Okay, so Fishbowl.
So I guess I would say that the emotions, you could tell that there was sort of an escalation of anger and tremendous emotion as the conversation was going on. I mean, it got to the point where you almost, people were talking over each other, talking louder. And I think that it sort of ignites a very, very visceral, emotional aspect in people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And as you know, we're hearing just from the very beginning, they jumped right into politics. And right as they were going into politics, you know, they definitely went from, you know, talking about Blacks and African Americans, and some people mentioning how they were comfortable with a specific name versus the other, right? And the ones that are comfortable with using the word Black happens to be Black, and those that use the word African American happens to be of a different color. And so noticing that, but of course, at the very end, as Rosemary had mentioned, you know, it definitely had escalated, and people were trying to voice their opinions over one another.
Another way that you can tell that, you know, that they were engaged in this conversation is that, you know, as educators, we are often told, you know, we're just listening for the sake of listening without the need to respond. But in this case, what they were doing is they were listening to each other, but they were immediately ready with some type of response. And so for that response to happen, there had to have been some type of engagement between the person responding and the person speaking. And so that was one very clear way that that they were really engaged in that conversation, because as Rosemary has said, that those emotions just kind of like bubbled up almost instantly with the first question.
So I noticed that one of the comments that was made when they were having their dialogue was around America being more segregated versus integrated. And as you know, that was at a particular time frame, in our history. Do you guys have any comments that you can share about that in terms of, do you think it's more segregated now versus integrated? What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing I noticed was there were a couple of folks who were pretty certain about their positions, and I think what they brought forward was kind of their experience in their answers, whether it was their own communities. One lady, she spoke to certain pockets being a little bit more segregated, and then it kind of built from there. So definitely, I noticed that it was really difficult for people to separate themselves from what maybe some data might say about the pockets of segregation that exist in our country.
I'd like to follow up on that, Jamal. I know the video is kind of like lagging at some time, but it was shown that there were more folks in that room that says it's more segregated now than ever. And so it's true that they spoke with their truth. They brought their identities with them as they shared their thoughts about segregation or integration, but more so about how they view the world in terms of their lens. And so I was stuck with someone else saying that majority of us could care less about racism, or 95% doesn't care about race. And I think that was because of his lens when he mentioned that. But it's data indicate that a lot of us care about our race, and because of that, that has spoken to how they have viewed the world through that particular lens.
I would tend to agree with Bernadette. Their reality can be so different from one another, and that's okay. But to have those experiences. I mean, this was done back during the time when the incident happened in Ferguson. Since that time, so much has happened in our society, in our world, and I don't see it getting better. I mean, I want to be optimistic. I want to have hope. I want to be able to say that the future for my children and my grandchildren and the students that we all work for is going to be better. And I think that, they spoke their truth, but the direction in which this is going is troublesome. It is really troublesome.
I think I would have to agree that I think at this point, even when we look at stats for COVID cases, there is a sharp divide between, especially in our county, there's a sharp divide between the zip codes that have the highest infectious and mortality rate versus those that don't. And at least in my observations, Highway 87 that cuts right in the middle of our county, of our city, is that dividing line. Because on the east side of Highway 87 are the cases that are the zip codes that had the highest mortality rate, the highest infection rate. And on the west side, you had those that had the lower mortality rates and the lower infectious rates. And so, the person that said that 95% of the people may not care, again, that's his lens. But when you bring up data against those lenses are being challenged. And for me to say that, it comes from data. I work in for the McKinley School District, and my district from the get-go said we're doing distance learning because 4 out of the 5 zip codes, I may be wrong with that stat, but 4 out of the 5 zip codes that had the highest infectious rates and death rates were in my school district. And so we didn't see it fit for the students to come back at the height of it because the families in our community are the essential workers, are the grocery store workers, are working in canneries outside in different parts of the county. And so, maybe that's the lens that 95% of people don't care, but the statistics show us otherwise, that we are indeed more segregated now. And this time we're more segregated by socioeconomic lines as well. I mean, what happened in Los Gatos earlier this year with the director of Good Samaritan Hospital? And so there's inequalities and there's aspects of segregation that aren't always overt, and people try to play off as not being overt or not being founded on race or founded on this or that, but it permeates our society, it permeates our culture, it permeates everything that we do. And it's hard to say that, we are becoming less and less segregated when in fact, I believe that we really are. And so, data goes up against a lens, and then there's going to be a point of contention. And that's what's happening now.
I think as an administrator and looking at our own school districts, we definitely see the segregations within the different schools that we have, right? And the population of students that we have. I came from a district that I felt like was more diverse in terms of having more students of color, to a district where, depending on where you are, whether you're down on the south side or the north side, there's definitely a heavier number of particular students within that school or within that area. And so we definitely see that within schools. We see that within homes, the areas that you live in. And so when you look at your own school district, think about what kinds of families or the different numbers of students at your school are of color, right? We're fortunate in California where we're able to see a little bit more of that. But as we move to specific areas, we maybe see less and less students of color. And how are these, areas of equity really being looked at, resources being looked at for our students? And so those are also areas that we have to really think about as we continue to work in education.
I think that one of the sort of issues in terms of having these conversations is, being faced with someone whose truth is very different than your own. And I think that sometimes we hesitate to have these conversations because it is uncomfortable. It sort of, you have to kind of like stretch yourself a little bit to feel sort of a little bit outside that zone of comfort. And, I think that, it's really important that we push to do that. And, I think that it's great that there are those who have come today to be engaged, because this is how we're going to be able to make things better. And I know that for myself, I am here because I want to find ways in which to engage others in these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bernadette. I was just going to respond to one of the questions. Go ahead.
And I also saw in the chat about, too, we have those data and how those data are actually, explicitly saying we have to do something, right? And it has to take some bold actions to challenge the status quo. And power and leadership are at play to make things, to disrupt what we are currently experiencing right now. But I'm inspired towards the end when someone else asked, I think the gentleman who would say, what needs to be taught, right? So America becomes a stronger country. And being a mathematics coordinator at the Santa Clara County Office of Education, where tracking is so evident, where math placement is really stratifying students in mathematics world, where math acceleration is so inequitable. And I have that feeling of hope. And what can we do now as a community, collaboratively strong, for those conversations to take place? And that would be something that will help us also propel to what we can do as a community.
Mhm. So one of the comments that was mentioned, I know we talked about it a little bit. It was that there was one of the gentlemen said that only a small number of people are getting shot, and there wasn't really a lot of conversation around that. What did you guys feel when that statement was made? How did that resonate with you?
Yeah, I thanks for asking that question, Denise. That was a little bit of a theme that I picked up in the group, which was because unspoken, I think in the group, it was unspoken, but I think I heard it alluded to here in the Fishbowl. It's all about concepts of power, because those folks who came from communities that have had traditional power in our society have tended to really define in minimalist terms things that were happening to communities of color, whether it was the small percentage of comment that you just alluded to, 95% couldn't care about race, which the inverse would be, well, really only 5% care about it. And there was another lady who made a comment of, well, it's why don't we have the peaceful protests anymore? So it's folks who have, what I noticed a theme was if someone was making a comment and they came from communities of power, dare I say, white people, they are used to being able to define what is and what is not, who is not, whether it's 3/5 of a person or whether it's something that's a problem like folks of color in their communities getting mistreated by folks in authority. So that was a theme that I picked up, and the comfort with which they spoke was evident. They were very comfortable, like taking exception to folk who might think and have a different experience than their own experience. Well, it was only, so it's not like what we say, it's how we say it as well. Well, it's only 5% that care about race, and it's really a small percentage. So it's almost like what we used to hear when this country was founded was, shut up, be happy what you got and stay in your place. So I just picked up on those themes that underneath those themes have to do with power and control.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else on that one? I don't know if you saw this question, Bernadette, but I know you being our math guru, one of the questions that came in the chat was around, if you're in a higher math track, then you're separated from the other kids taking lower math and all academic classes, taking remedial classes. I don't know if that's, everywhere, but why are more students of color in the special ed?
And again, the whiteness of our mathematics curriculum speaks to the set of expectations that has been set forth even at the very beginning, how our textbooks are being made, how our assessments are being created, how our grading system is also, giving access to several groups of students who have had that opportunity more than the other groups. And so that in itself speaks to, again, the categorization of how we are misplacing our students. And sometimes it's so evident that that's based off of race. And so as we speak to centering our activities, centering our programs, centering our initiatives on the race is so crucial. And it's tough though, because that brave conversation and that difficult discussions need to take place. And I'm just so glad that we have this to speak to how we feel that could, change the story and change the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, can I say something about it? Is this okay or no?
Oh, hold on to that one, Miriam. I know your voice, my dear. We're going to let you get to speaking in a couple minutes here. So, and kind of we're going to be wrapping up this segment and going into smaller groups so that we can hear from our audience. But as you think about any of the comments, anything that resonated with you, everyone can go around and give a little summation of how you could see how folks were demonstrating their four agreements, and then also how you would like to respond to any of the comments or actions that you observed in that clip. So just as we wrap it up, everybody can say their last few comments about that.
Yeah, I just quickly want to say that we have a tremendous opportunity. The institution that we call our education system needs a lot of reform. And I think that we're at a point in time where, you know, we should take advantage of making changes. But that means that we need to be bold enough. We need to have policymakers who are going to not be afraid to be able to move this forward. So I am very hopeful that things can happen. So I kind of am sort of like opening that door for others to participate in that.
I would push back a little with that, because the system that we currently have in education was established in a way that puts whiteness above everything else. And, you know, reform isn't going to change that. And I think what we need to start thinking is thinking in the words of Dr. Bettina Love. How do we dismantle this impressive system and reimagine it for the needs of our students, for the needs of our children? And so we can't reform something that was built this way. It needs to be dismantled, and it needs to be reimagined with our children at the forefront, with our children of color at the forefront, because often it's our stories. And I'm saying our because I was a student of color in the K-12 education system. And I just remember the first book that was read to me with characters of color wasn't until the 5th grade. Everything before that was Fun with Dick and Jane. That's how I learned to read. And, you know, our system is built the way that it is, and it's working in the way that it should be working. And for us to get away from that, we have to break apart the system that we have right now and reimagine it again with our children at the forefront, with their identities at the center, with their spirits to be left intact, because we cannot perpetuate whiteness and white studies and the spirit killing of our children. And so I used to be a reformer, but now I'm a dismantler. Now I'm an abolitionist when it comes to our educational system. And we need to do this for the sake of our children, or else we're going to be seeing the same repetitive cycle for the next 200, 300 years. And we can't afford that for our kids.
Mm-hmm. And these conversations are definitely really important to have with our staff as well as our students, and bringing in, books of color on social justice or equity, just to really teach them at a really young age to respect one another, regardless of color, is really important. You know, growing up in Salinas and having experience, I had another student of color that called me names based on, my appearance, right? So how can we go about teaching our students that, what is right from what is wrong, and being able to help them as they grow into, adults, and those are going to be running our society, right? And so we have a lot of work that we need to do. We, from this video, had experienced Black Lives Matters, now a lot of the anti-Asian crimes. So a lot of things are happening in our society. And as educators, we need to really step up and be that voice, right? And be able to educate our peers and our colleagues and our students about what's happening and what they can do to be better.
Okay. We're going to have to stop there, but we're going to continue the conversation. One of the comments in the chat was that we stay in a whole group, but we will be coming back together. But there's a activity that is already scheduled for breakout groups, so we're going to go there. You guys will get the opportunity to continue the conversation, and then we'll come back and debrief, and then open it up a little bit more before we have our next activity. So I'd like to again thank the Fishbowl participants, and I thank all of those that are putting questions in the chat. Really appreciate it, and we're gonna make sure we try to get to all of those things, but we're just trying to keep in the spirit of the plan so that we can get the other activities done. We're going to go to have facilitators. Our facilitators are some of the breakout of the Fishbowl folk, but there's also added there Lisa, Dr. and the doctors, Lisa and Eric Andrew will be in one of the rooms. Mandy Barbara, also, you can see it from Silicon Valley. And those are our new folks. I think everybody else you've already seen in the Fishbowl. And we will go there, have more conversation, and there'll be some prompts, or you can continue the conversation. So whatever you decide there with your facilitator will be great. So V is going to send us off to our breakout rooms.
All right, opening all breakout rooms. You have around 20 minute-ish, and we will be back around 5:30. Enjoy. I hope you have a good time in the breakout sessions. We're closing all the room now. So let's give everybody a few minutes for everybody to come back. We have around 30 something seconds left, and for all the rooms to be closed, and welcome back. Everybody should be back now. Welcome, everybody. We hope you had some rich conversations in the breakout room.
Yeah, we were still chatting there. My group will be back. Somebody was writing in midstream of their sentence, but let's see. We are here just for a brief time. So interested in hearing on anything that was mentioned in the smaller group that you feel that the entire group might benefit from? Anyone want to share out? Now, I know a couple folk did try before. They can actually speak now.
Well, I'll get it rolling because I just want to share what I heard in my group.
Okay, thanks, Manny.
So, and please, the people that set this, jump in. I think one thing that I heard that was very critical when we're talking about equity, and do we even have a common understanding of what that is? We talk about it all the time. And one of our participants, who can feel free to jump in, I thought said something really interesting, that equity is the willingness to balance the world, and to balance the world and what that involves. And we also discussed at length what's the root cause analysis, what's the root cause of that issue that was brought up in one of the side comments about special ed placement. And finally, there was a consensus with the group that the facilitator of that video, that it almost seemed like it was a sensationalized setup rather than a legitimate attempt to have a real conversation. And please, if the group jump in, if there's, I didn't say everything, but there was some key points.
Well, that did come up in our group too, that it was kind of Hollywood and staged on the video clip. That did come up there. And there was also the conversation similar to yours, Manny, that start off with some concrete definitions around language, like what is equity, you know? So do we talk about it as a whole together? And have that conversation, as we continue to move forward. So making sure everyone is understanding and bringing their perspective and having a conversation about it. So that was one of the other things also. Anyone else?
I wanted to say something. Is it okay now? Okay now?
Yes, Miss Miriam. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, thank you. For one thing, like I did also notice about the person that talking to the group, and I said, I don't know if you can relate to the people experience, but I also, the dynamic in the room, it's what we see. I see generally the dynamic where I go places, whether at work or something, at other places. I noticed that the officer, the way he responded, even though he was a minority, the way he responded, like almost going along with the status quo. And I see that many times at my work, or it will be a minority teacher will go along because they want to keep their job. They don't want to stir up, any problem. And then the other one who would like only, 5%, only 95%. They want the peaceful one. They don't see anything, or it's just the dynamic of who we are, and how we respond to discrimination and racism. Some of us are angry. Are we gonna say something, and then others will just go along, but deep down they hurting, and others are just in denial about the whole thing, and then others will jump into politics. This is always politics, and what should I call you, and this and this, and so it's just really a reflection of who we are. I hope one day this will change. I still want to repeat what I said in the group. I really believe our job to work on the adults, not the little kids, because no offense to anyone that's here, if I worked with you or I didn't work with you, I've been in a dynamic. And I love our superintendent. I'm gonna let you know, like I retired. Like I see poor school, which is the majority of the students are minority. And I noticed the most discrimination is there. Like if you go to a richer school, you might not even find it as much. And I'm like the dynamic, like who are we hiring or who this? We need to work on the adult because we are, as a teacher, we are the role models. And the students are watching us, they're watching their parents and they're watching us. So I'm never gonna make it an admin. You know that already. First of all, I'm not good at it. Second, I'm a minority. So if you are an admin, you are in a place of work on that to make sure it's equitable among the adults, and the adult will be a good role model for the children. As I said it in my small group, children are not racist, adults are racist. So we need to work on that. And if you are here, that means I'm preaching to the choir, you're preaching to the choir. We talk about the one, they are not here, so, and that's, okay, enough said. But I said, when you say I'm getting emotional, I'm very tired. Nobody can get rid of me now. So like,
thanks, Mary.
Now I can talk.
In our group, we actually had a number of different conversations, and definitely one thing that we mentioned was it's important to listen, right? We didn't quite see that in the video that was shown, but we know that that is something that's super important. And then also one of our audience had shared that there's a book called My Grandmother's Hands that is a book upon trauma and talking about just really looking at our own self-trauma and how we can actually reflect upon that in order to move on. So thought that was something that was great to be able to hear. Susan shared that within her school, just having a school culture team really working together and building a social justice unit for students. And I wanted to actually have Susan see if she can speak a little bit more about that to share with other educators and administrators out there about what you're doing at your site.
Sure. I teach second grade, and I'm part of the school culture team. And this year, at the beginning of the year, we decided our focus was going to be anti-racism and how we can educate ourselves, do the hard work of understanding more, and then bring it to the staff who can then ultimately bring it to the students. So we kind of dove in with much support from our administrator, and at every staff meeting, he gives us like 30 to 45 minutes to teach different issues. So we do like short videos on microaggressions or redlining or different topics, whether color blindness is good or bad and what people's impressions are. And we actually use the restorative justice circle format for our staff so that we have kind of a warm up, and everyone answers an easier question, and then we all have the option to speak or pass on the kind of deeper question that we are trying to get at. And then we leave them with some resources. And then as a follow-up, we open up, we call it SCT chats, school culture team chats, where anyone's allowed to jump in and join us in an afternoon in the zero time that we all have this year, teaching remotely. And then what we started to do is we went to a training, I think by Lee and Low Books, for Black Lives Matter. And we all decided as a whole staff that we want to develop Black Lives Matter 13 guiding principle lessons. And we have been teaching those to our class. We probably started in February. I know I'm about halfway through. And, from TK to 5, we've been having these great conversations and read alouds, teaching students about collective value or being unapologetically Black, and having queer affirming, transgender affirming, and a lot of these topics with the goal of building a safe, loving community and respecting everyone and giving everyone their opportunity to choose to be who they are and live how they want to live, and everyone should be respecting that. So that is where we are now. And I know my grade level is thinking about continuing to use the Black Lives Matter principles, starting from the beginning, and then adding lessons from, here's the book I couldn't remember, Being the Change, Sarah K. Ahmed. It's a Heinemann book. And these are social comprehension lessons about identity, microaggressions, bias. We're using this book as well as anti-bias building blocks. And we're going to try to, combine everything together to get a really strong year-long curriculum. And what I found is our admin and our staff was really ready to do the work, but we want more support from the district level and even the county level for this type of work, whether the support is through mission statements or, parent education, which is huge because there has been a little bit of pushback, not too much, but, we are in their homes and parents are listening to all these things and they see a slide that says queer affirming and they freak out a little bit. So things like that have happened, but there's so much more good that we see in having the children learn about this at such a young age so that it is their norm and they have the vocabulary to go forth. And as they get older in high school, hopefully they won't have as many of the issues that we hear as happening in middle school and high school, having not had the education as younger kids.
All right, thanks, Susan. That was awesome. And there are a lot of great information in the chat. We're gonna go to our last breakout group and have another activity, and we'll be going back to the same with our same teams that we were in before, and we're going to be starting our challenge to action. At the end of each of our sessions, we like to think about, well, how can we take this and use it with our organization? Doesn't have to be, some of us may not be educators. How can we, have these conversations and look at our journey and where we need to go? So we're going to talk about the challenge to action when we go back to our breakout groups and have an activity that will help you utilize this tool. So Dee is going to send us back, then we'll come back and debrief again.
Yes. So I actually, because we do have some people dropping off the call, so I kind of move people around a little bit. So if you were in the same room with Dr. Lisa and Eric Andrew, you're going to be moved. And if you were also in the room with Manny, you will also going to be moved to a different room. This time around, the room going to be a little bit bigger, but it's a great conversations for, I hope you're going to have richer conversations with new folks in the room. And the 2 resources that you're going to be doing are going to be in the chat for you to open and make a copy for yourself. We're going to be back around 6 p.m. and I will send you all a reminder. How was that? Was that too quick? Amisha?
No, we got some time to think. Thank you.
Okay. Mhm. Yeah, people are slowly coming back. I know that the Jamboard is loaded with a lot of awesome stuff. I hope everybody has some time to, if you're unfamiliar with Jamboard, you can go into other slide to see what other room was doing. Now let's wait for a little bit so everybody can come back, give or take around 15 more seconds. I hope you enjoy that little quick activity. And I believe now everybody's back.
Well, shoot, we were getting ready to hear from Jamal there. We didn't even get a warning.
I'm sorry. I sent out 3 warnings. I know.
We didn't see it. We're so.
So we can hear from him now. We got a little bit of time for folks to be reflective in what resonated with them and or share out how they could utilize the tool or not. I think it's not just for educators. We're not sure who else is on the call, but there may be folks that are in other areas that could utilize that too. So what did you think? Any comments about it? And and before you go, just to remind you, those that were in on the call with Glenn Singleton, this is just one of his big ideas, one of his concepts, one of his tools from his book. So we're just utilizing some of that, those really great resources that he provides for us. And this is one of them. And these are, you have access to them now, because I think they'll be in the chat or however V's going to get them out to you, but you'll have it. And there'll be a couple lucky people at the end that will get his book. So hang in there to the end, because we're going to have everybody who's here on the wheel. So you'll be able to maybe get his book, which is just amazing. I'm sure you all know. But anyway, anybody want to share anything with us? I saw a lot of great things in the chat, and I know you guys did get cut short in your conversation there. You may want to share with the entire group now.
I'll start, Denise, instead of just kind of sitting here. Couple of things, and I hope the people that brought this up, please jump in. We never got past the I don't know. So that was the so we were there, and I'll just make some general comments. We had one, and I'd like to point out in the chat Donald King's comment about dealing with the systemic inequity issues and having those kind of conversations and how they would take place. We thought that, the group that was, the video we saw was not what we would consider a well-facilitated type of discussion that would lead to that discussion. So Donald, I'm not going to speak for you. Read his comment and please jump in. We also heard from a white mom who is motivated to write a book in terms of how to deal with biracial kids and the challenges as a white mom never facing racism, but except through her husband. We also heard from people doing this work and the challenges dealing with staff and people there in the I don't know, and how do we get them past that particular challenge? And we were just about to hear from Jamal's challenges as a Black male principal leading a large staff at an intermediate school that is can be challenging, and plus the community. And then we got cut off. So I'm sorry, Jamal. I don't know if you want to add to it, but I was interested to hear what you had to say. So.
Where's Jamal?
Sure, I'd be happy to chime in. Thanks, Denise. And yeah, in my 6th year, we have a staff of 34 teachers, not counting the rest of certificated support staff. I brought in 19 of those 34 in my 6th year. So we have the right people on the bus and the right seats, yet having these conversations I've dabbled with kind of systematically. We didn't start by talking about the evils of the oppressor and how much our students have been oppressed. We didn't go there. We addressed it by policy. Some of those policies were collectively ordained, others weren't, and I was pretty upfront, saying, "Hey guys, sometimes we're gonna, jointly, collectively understand this, and other times that's not going to be the case." And I was very mindful to be selective. Usually when kids were getting hurt, their educational careers were getting hurt, is when it tended to be less democratic in terms of some of the policy decisions. The ones that were collectively committed to and understood, those are the ones that have tended to endure. But even 2 years removed from working with West Ed on restorative practices, now in the 3rd year of working with Victor Rios at UC Santa Barbara on culturally relevant teaching, and we're just now scratching the surface. And these are 34 teachers who I would put my kid in every single one of these classes. So, having brought in a majority of the staff, they have the shared values, they have the shared mission, they have the shared vision, but we're just scratching the surface of discussions about race and unconscious bias, and it is heavy lifting. I mean, I was fooled into thinking that because we have all gotten to a place where we can kind of party together and laugh together, that it would be easy to have this conversation, but it absolutely proved me wrong. It's very difficult. So I've just implored people to work in, to work out. Don't start to kind of move forward. And I love Dr. Bettina Love, one of her talks, she says, "Hey, this work has a lot of lanes, just get in one and go. Don't worry about what lane you're in. Just whatever you're gonna do, just get in. Allied work has there's a lot of lanes, and just get in one lane and go." And I encourage people, don't start going until you work inside and you deal with your own junk. Because a lot of times teachers, especially for Manny alluded to as a principal, myself as administrator of color, African-American and Hispanic, a lot of times I'll get the little bit of that, I'm sorry, I'm sorry for the last, since your people stepped foot, 1619, I'm sorry for the last, 400 years. And, I remind them that, hey, we don't have time for that. You go work that out. You go fix all that stuff, and then you come back when you've got it all fixed up. So I just encourage my staff, when we have the conversations, to work in, to work out. Address your own stuff, recognize your own biases. They're lifelong biases. They're not going to go away. So you just learn how to manage them and be honest with them. And then you can be honest how you represent your community moving forward to a collective shared community where all stakeholders can thrive and feel that they've got a voice and a stake in the game.
Thank you, Jamal. Anyone else?
I wanted to comment about the math earlier. I wanted to speak about there was a question about the math placement for students of color or minority students, could be Latino, could be, because I was a math teacher, I want to tell you from my experience, the students are just being passed by. They're not like really tested to be in advanced classes until I will speak up and say, you know what, this student is really smart. I really think should be here. And almost the minority students have to prove themselves first to be in advanced classes. So it wasn't because of the text. In my experience, it wasn't the textbook. It's the way we built our thinking. And I know we brought a lot of questions, a lot of conversation about color. I don't even, believe in my heart, even that's the only issue. The issue is the way we think, we discriminate. Yes, George Floyd, because the people of color, they were visible, they were demonstrating, and everybody want to prove, oh, no, I'm not racist, But what about the other minorities? They're like, now Asians are speaking up. What about, to me, like there's so many heartbreaking stories. Which minority is next? So we have to change our way of thinking. It's not like, okay, I'm now being fair to, okay, I hire someone of color, look at me, No, we have to change our way of thinking. That's what it is. And again, thank you for allowing me to be here. And I want to apologize if I spoke up, because usually I don't speak that much, but it was an opportunity for me to just, and if I'm wrong, let me know, because for some reason, this is emotional issue, if you are a minority, it is emotional. So our way of thinking, and I'm thinking we have a big responsibility to, to be the role model for those students and our children. So, yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Miriam. No, you're a champion for the students, always have been. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you so much. I have to teach. I'm gonna go.
So I believe we're going to, we're right on time, and we're going to, we're coming to close, and we have a couple other things to do. But thank you all for, participating in our breakout activities this afternoon and this evening. And you can put comments in the chat. We will save those and review them, take everything in, to consideration, what your suggestions or whatever else you have put in there. And there's a lot of great just comments and food for thought, and it gives us an opportunity as we go back and reevaluate and push our thinking also. So thank you very much. I think.
All right. Yep. Again, thank you everybody for sharing with us and trusting this space to speak up and to share with us your thoughts. And I also want to shout out to those who are also using the chat to share other resources to others, so that we can all learn. I do want to bring us back into the topic of today, agreeing to talk about race. And by you joining and still stay with us until now, I would like to give you a virtual high five for just doing that. And we want to use the opportunity to close the evening on a light note. I saw on the Jamboard earlier that somebody wrote down that children can be taught anti-racist behavior and action. And personally, I agree with that comment 100%. We do want to close tonight with a little poem from Amanda Gorman, a young American poet and change maker. And she would like to share with us a little bit I think one of many of her amazing poems. And the poem is called Talking Gets Us There. Can you hear okay? Just checking. Okay.
Writing poetry is my favorite way to use my own voice. This is a poem I wrote called Talking Gets Us There. It's normal to notice what makes us different, because what makes us different is what makes each of us so special. There's beauty in every type of face and in every type of freckle. From the curl of your hair to the color of your skin, no one is exactly the same, not even twins. But across time and place, people have been treated unfairly just because of their race. So heroes get into good trouble. They have to struggle for a long while, but when they win, it's worth every mile. People of color still experience racism today. So it's up to all of us to say enough is enough, to speak out with all our hearts. And that starts at home. It starts with asking questions about race when we're taught about it. Together, I know we can tackle racism. But first, we have to talk about it.
I hope that you enjoy that very short video. We do want to take a little opportunity for you to quickly fill out the survey, and I just dropped that down in the link. While you do that, we would also like to invite you to register for our very last equity conversations for this session. It's going to be on June 3rd, and we're going to have an amazing author and speaker, Chris Singleton, to join us, and he will also share with us his personal journey, and he's going to get real personal about his personal race in his life, right? And similar to the activity that you went through with a facilitator today, we are going to do some sort of activity for you to, again, use that as a tool that you can share with others, but at the same time, have something to hold on to in case you need some sort of tool to guide you through this conversation. And I put it in the chat in case you did not register for it. And again, just want to emphasize that we do take your input very seriously. So please, please, please help us complete the survey. And I'm going to take a good 2 minutes for everybody to take this time to do the survey, because we all know that you're here until now for the raffle of the books. And for those who, in order for you to be on this raffle, if you registered and stayed with us from the beginning until the end, I already put all your names on the wheels. But I'm sure some of the people already dropped off because they have, personal matters, but they do, or whoever wins, you have to be present to be able to claim the prize. So I do want to take another 2 minutes for people to complete the survey. Again, we do take the survey quite seriously. So please, please, please help us to let us know how we can improve for our last one for this sessions. In fall, we will kickstart again with more equity conversations, more courageous conversations about race. And we're constantly asking and sharing this information out with those who previously attend our session. Okay. I'm going to take this opportunity for to show you what my wheels of name looks like. Yeah. There's a lot of names going on. Well, for those who are going to be receiving a copy of the book, we do ask that you privately share with me your current address so that we can mail it out for you. And again, the book is going to be Glenn Singleton book. It's the second edition of the Courageous Conversations About Race. As Denise mentioned with you, it's an amazing book to have, and we are building our series solely based on this book because we love his activities, implementations exercise. Okay, so it is 6:20, and I do want to honor your time, and I do. We are raffling 2 books. So the chances is slim based on this, right? But I do wish you the luck of the day. And again, you have to be, there's a lot of people on here that's already left. So I hope that the chance of getting bigger. All right, let's do this.
Full screen, please.
Shake it up. Marcella, are you here?
Yes. Wow.
Yay!
That's the most
Okay,
exciting thing that's
please.
happened in a year.
So exciting.
Thank you.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop. Your name?
I'm here.
Yay! Yay!
I'm excited.
All right. Please, please, please privately chat to me your mailing address so that we can ship it out to you. Congratulations one more time to both of our winners. And again, we hope you enjoyed the session today. We hope that you felt more courageous to have more bold conversations with those that you care about, or those who that you felt like there was a safe space for you to do so. We also challenge you to encourage others to have courageous conversations. We hope you have a good night, good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. And of course, we hope to see you sometime in the future in the next courageous conversation in June 3rd. So goodbye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. V, that wheel was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank